you have no you can't miss us on today. Wonderful guest on today. We're going to do two shows on today. So I want you guys to stick with us. Don't go anywhere because you are in for a treat on this afternoon. My first guest, I am here in the studio with this beautiful woman of God. She's so beautiful to me. I'm looking at her and she has such a beautiful smile. And when I walked in, she just welcomed me with just big arms,
I'm a
just a
hugger.
big hug. I can tell. I can tell. And I thank you for that, 'cause I needed that. I was a little
Oh,
hurried on today, so I needed that to kind of calm me down a little bit. So I appreciate that. And help me. I have a phobia about mispronouncing
uh-huh.
people's names. And I don't know if I've been doing it right or not. So I'm going to try this. I'm here with Dr. Toyin
Yes.
Falusi. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's somewhere around there,
No,
huh?
you're great. You're
Okay.
great.
She's here in the studio with me on this afternoon. She's a real doctor. This is not somebody just went on online and just, did something. Okay, I'm a doctor. She's a real doctor. Okay. And she's here with us because we're going to discuss her book. And the title alone really grabs your attention. It is called The Decade After Surviving, and surviving is crossed out, and you have thriving after divorce. And she is a divorcee, and she's going to come on and talk about this book from her own personal experience, something that will help all of us.
Yes.
Because even as reading this book, I know you're gearing it towards divorce, but a lot of times when people, and we're going to kind of get into this a little bit today, when you talk about divorce, that's a splitting, that's
Correct.
something kind of tragic that you've had to deal with yourself. So we can kind of apply a lot of things that you're talking about here, not only to divorce, but to other areas
Other
of our lives.
relationships
Yeah,
and
other
other areas of
relationships.
our lives. Yes.
Definitely,
Yes.
definitely. So that's just the
Yes.
psychology in me pulling out. That's all.
Yes. Yes. No, it's great because I have had feedback from people who are happily married,
Yes,
single, parents, different kinds about some of the things that they've picked up from the book that applies to
yes.
issues and other relationships
Beautiful.
outside of divorce. So yes.
Beautiful. So this technique, I said all that to say she has techniques in here that's going to help
Yes.
many of us. Okay, it's not just the divorcee. So go ahead, share this live feed, like and share, let someone know Mind Body and Soul is on. I know you're probably looking for me at 12, but we're
Yeah.
here now. We're here. So don't go anywhere. Okay, so we're going to talk to the doctor on today, and what I want her to do right now, I want you to then we can go
Go
from
from
there.
there.
There you go.
Sounds like a
All
plan.
right.
Sounds like a plan. So again, like Annette said, I'm Toyin Falusi, and I am an infectious disease physician. But way before we go there, I'll talk a little bit about myself. Born in the U.S., so born in New York, but to Nigerian parents, so grew up in Nigeria and been back in the U.S. 25 years post graduated medical school a long time ago and have been back here practicing infectious diseases at Cook County Health. So I take care of adults living with HIV and viral hepatitis and promote sexual health and taking care of yourselves and living with HIV successfully. So this is what I do in my professional life. But in addition to take care of patients, I'm a firm believer in empowering people to take charge of their own health and their lives and empowering people to live their best lives. So advocacy, teaching, and educating both our next, group of physicians and healthcare providers, but also the patients and the communities that they come from to do, to kind of get control of their health and empower themselves. Like I said, I'm one of, 5 kids. I have 2 wonderful daughters who were and are my inspiration to be my best every day. And the reason I wrote this book, because my love for my kids drove the whole process from the divorce, the process of the divorce, and going on after to thrive so that they can thrive and have their best lives. So, what I do is I'm a mom. My primary job is a mom. I'm a daughter, I'm a friend to many, and I'm a physician and I enjoy what I do. And I actually am very passionate about what I do. My job I consider not just a job, I consider it a calling. And so my patients are my family and we're always doing this together to see how they can live their best life. So again, that's about me.
That's
And I
you.
use humor a lot. So I use humor a lot. Everybody has like their go-to, their coping mechanism. Humor is part of how I go through life and navigate life. And I don't think I've offended too many people because it comes from a good place, but that's,
Right.
and I laugh a
Okay.
lot.
Oh wow.
And I'm a hugger. You saw
And
that
your
today.
hugger, yes, yes. I told you guys in the beginning when I walked in, she just gave me this big hug, and I just love
Yeah.
that. So thank you so much. I see you guys coming on the Facebook Live feed. Go ahead again, like and share. I see you, big sister Kathy. Thank you for watching. Kamitra's son, Demetria Brand Triplet. That's my assistant, and she has shared. Thank you for sharing to the other groups as well. And she's saying, "Welcome to to the
Yes.
My Body and Soul
Yeah.
family." So yes, again, we welcome you and we thank you so much for joining us on today. And I'm so glad that we made the connection to be able to have you on because I think this again, this book, what you're doing, is very important. A lot of times people are not transparent uh, of what they've gone through and what they've dealt with.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes for shame, it could be a variety of reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But when you step out and share the things that have hurt you.
Mm-hmm.
I also like a little side note how you said this is not a tell-all book of
No,
exactly
it's
what
not.
happened,
So if I right
in
off the
your,
bat, if you're
yeah,
skipping on page 1 or 2, trying
right,
to say, hey, what, it's not
right,
that
it's
book,
not
drop
that
it and
book.
keep on moving. There's enough of those, right?
It
There's enough
is,
trashy stuff out there.
it is,
And there are enough serious books out there with the psychologists and the technical experts, and those
hmm
are important when you
very,
have
very
an
much
area
so.
about doing your research and knowing how to go through the process successfully. But this was my voice, and
Yes,
those who've read it, who know me personally, say they like it's like sitting next to me for chit chatting because it was my truth, it was authentic, and again, like I said, the inspiration was my children to make sure they had the best lives they could have regardless of what happened with their parents. And
right.
that's my driving
And
inspiration.
that's interesting. I'm just going to try to make it a little personal here for myself.
Okay.
I think it's so admirable of you to want to write a book that you said it was really for your kids. And I think that's wonderful. We have so much now, technology,
Hmm.
things before us that we can be able to share things to be able to help us through things in life that somebody else is probably going through. Now, my parents were divorced when I was much younger. I'll be 52 this year, so that was,
Great.
well, thank you. I think I was maybe like 5 years old or something like
Hmm.
that. They didn't have all of this.
Mine was 6 and 7.
Okay, okay. See? And
Yes.
the thing, my mom, I don't even know if she would even want to share anything in a book or anything like that. But I think something like that would have helped, to kind of to talk things through or to deal with things because you do not know. We won't know until we actually sit down and they actually share with us what our children are dealing with
Correct.
because of a divorce.
Correct.
He even said at one point that your children has secretly hoped that
Would
you
get
all
back
would get back
together. Yeah,
together.
kids always do.
Yeah.
And yeah, you bring up so many interesting points. And so when I talked to Ilby, when you said to introduce myself, and I said, I'm born in America, lived here the last 25 years, but I am Nigerian by birth and culture. You talked about, the shame. Why don't people share? And yeah, to actually put myself out there and talk about it, because I realized that there are a lot of people who are going through separations and divorce and trying to find something you can connect with, someone who's gone through the path, but not in a negative, woe is me, my life is done way,
Right.
not in a, we hate all men or we hate all, spouses,
Mm-hmm.
but in a positive way going forward. How can you make the best of that situation? So I'm not out here, because what I've found is since the book was released, a lot of people have reached out to me through Facebook, through instant messaging, through different ways,
See?
and shared things that I didn't even know, and just kind of said, oh, I read this help. I underlined this part. I picked up some parenting stuff, even though I'm happily married. There are things about parenting and
Mm-hmm.
co-parenting. I was able to see how to help a friend going through this. So, it's a short book, but the outline was really kind of a little bit in the beginning describing, myself, a little bit of who I am and why I wrote this book. The second part was you and the children. That was the first part of the book, you and the children, and how to really put them first, regardless of what's going on, and how to let them be kids and not be a therapist. So sometimes they're there to dump
Yes.
on, it's too much. They already have so much they deal dealing with. So that part is really just kind of letting them be kids and putting them first, which means that as you're working with your co-parent, you're figuring out what's the best for the kids. Doesn't mean it's easy. That's putting a lot of your own hurt aside for the kids. They're only kids for a little while, and then they're grown up. And some of the damage we do during that process when they're kids affects the kind of relationships they're able to have later. And I didn't want any of that. So what could I do to make it better for them? And what I wanted to do was share what I found along my process to help other people. The second part then goes into you and your co-parent. So I didn't say you and your ex, because like you said, divorce is the end of something. The end of something that most people go into wanting to last forever. Very few people go in with a divorce agenda. You go in thinking this is it. So when that happens, the second part of it is not always framing yourself as reference to the divorce, knowing that if you have children, you're going to be co-parenting forever, whether or not you think about it that way, right? If you didn't have kids, you can choose never to speak with that person again if that's what makes you okay to heal. As long as you have children together, you're always going to have a relationship. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you can try, and especially as moms, to make it the best that you can. So co-parenting, realizing that, it's not a competition, and how can you do it with some civility, including who else they partner with. And if your children are spending time with them, how do you maintain something that is civil for the sake of your children? And then the third part is you and others, which is everybody else. How do you share information if you choose to? How do you do it in a positive way? How do you stop people from obsessing about your issues and trying to get into your business? How do you ask for help without thinking that's weakness? All again, thinking about how you
Yes.
grow. And then the last part, which I thought was really important, was you as you grow from that process, right? So that's something that happened, whether or not you initiated it or not. How do you grow from that? How do you become a better person, not a bitter person? How do you learn from that so that you learn about your other relationships? How do you learn to empower yourself so you don't settle? So you don't settle for the next person right away just because your ex moved on or because that makes you feel good. How do you take time to like know yourself and figure out how you can then move on to that next relationship? And how do you keep your growth potential? Like this is a period for me to grow. And most of our growth comes from adversity, right? The best things we do comes when we have to. Think about it. Most times we're cruising along at work, you don't really think about your accomplishments and or your market value until you hear the company's about to downsize or somebody else bought. Then you're getting out your resume, you're trying to put stuff together, or you get fired, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, all these skill sets I didn't know, right? So adversity is a hard stop, but what you do after that is really important. Do you let it define you and say, I was divorced and so I'm a failure, and then you're living in that survival mode and you're raising kids in that survival mode? Or this happened, what did I learn from that and how do I go forward? So my very first page in the book starts off with a lot of I ams. We don't usually go through life as women saying, I am this, I am that. But it was really to say, I am a mother, I am a sister, I'm a loyal friend, I'm a physician, I love humor, I do all this, and I was a wife. But that doesn't define me, right? Because you have to own all your I ams every day. And sometimes, it's a little hard. But if you own enough I ams about all the things that you are, the divorce is just one part of life and you can figure out how to move on.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
I love it. You have actually outlined this book so well, and I like the way you just went through the different parts of it. And I appreciate that because sometimes you have to break things down
yeah,
real
correct.
good so people can
Correct.
understand it.
Correct.
I want to ask you this one question, and then what
Sure.
I want to do is actually inform my listeners of something before we take a quick break. My question to you: did you not see, or did you see an example in front of you before you wrote this book? I know you said you wrote it for your children. Did you see an example before you of how to deal with divorce, or or what you saw in front of you was probably, I need to put something down in the book?
Correct. So
Okay.
it was more that because within my social circles and the people I knew and socialized with, and also people I met people I grew up with. My divorce, there was one person at work who I wasn't very close with, who was going through one, and we ended up getting closer, bonding. Right? People bond through certain conditions. We became very good friends through that process. But like every marriage is different, every divorce is different. What's at stake is different. What people want is different. So it's really not a cut and paste, because I'd also gotten feedback from my book. People saying, well, you made this seem like it was so perfect, it was so easy. And there is no perfection. This is just you striving to do your best every day. And so I read a lot of books. I'm a nerd. I put that in there on page one. I love to read every interaction. Every time I'm talking to someone, I'm like learning something about them, about the situation, about myself. I'm always thinking about. So I read a lot, because what I knew of divorce, first of all, it wasn't something that I knew anybody. My parents are 50 years in. Everybody I knew, all my siblings, all my friends are still married. Everybody I went to medical school with, so it wasn't like I had a personal. What I knew was stuff you see, the splashy stuff, celebrities getting divorced, people getting divorced. People I knew in my community who were divorced, not that many, but they weren't close friends. And so I didn't have anyone. But what I knew of divorce was all the negative stuff. So I'm in medicine. So I knew all the data around kids of divorce are statistically more likely to, have issues with future relationships, higher rate of drug use, teen pregnancy, a whole bunch of things. And I said, well, medicine, statistics are great, but you can never apply that to every single situation. What was it that made those kids at a high risk for those things? And I figured a lot of it probably had to do with what's going on with that process. So they're dealing with a lot. They're feeling guilty about maybe why the parents split up. And then people have moved on without necessarily processing what's going on. And then the kids, if they don't have a positive relationship with both parents, you can see how that would lead to, how are they coping. So as adults, we have ways to maybe cope, people to talk to. Some kids, start self-medicating, that they're starting to figure out ways to get attention. So there was a lot of data around negative outcomes. And that was the first thing I thought about with my divorce was, how do I make this not happen to my kid? That was like my driving force. And everyone kept saying, you're going through this. So I said, regardless of what's going on, my love for my kids, and for every woman or parent, I'm sure your love for your kids trumps whatever dislike, or I don't want to use the word hate, you have for your ex. And if you put that first, I was like, what else can I do? And I had books on the process itself, right? The divorce process, the financial stuff, went to see a therapist, things like that. But they were PhD psychologists, there were great books with research, but they were very technical. And then there were a lot of memoirs and tell-alls about divorce, about what happened, who did what, and I didn't that they're trashy, they're fun, but they don't help you. They're just that situation.
Entertainment.
Exactly. So I just gleaned what I could. I prayed for strength. I found out things that I saw that were positive, what we could do to kind of keep the kids, not dumping too much on them, putting them first, learning to be civil with your co-parent, learning to foster a positive relationship with that other parent so that their self-esteem remains intact. So that's why after I went through that, and a couple of years ago, people would say, oh my gosh, your kids, they seem so well adjusted, they're great, they're doing well. Like, yo, you should start a blog or something. You should say, So I just thought, when my younger one goes to college, she's finished her freshman year, that I would have so much time, outside of the hospital. I'm going to actually write something. But then I started writing in her senior year of high school. It got done faster than I thought because it was my truth. There wasn't anything else outside. It happened faster than I thought it would. And it's been really well received. And I've had people say, you know what, the parenting things in there are great, regardless of, whether or not you parents live in separate homes. I've had people say, I'm not divorced, but I have separated or divorced friends. And I learned a little bit about how to help them,
Ooh.
how not to talk about them, how not to judge them. Things that, how can we support each other? I have a whole thing in there about, as women, we need to support each other and not judge. So a lot of reasons why people kind of ostracize themselves or feel ostracized is the judgment of people that they were with, and people sometimes have to take sides when you guys get divorced. All of a sudden, the play dates are going away, all the
Mhm.
couple stuff, you're not part of it anymore, but you're like, she was my friend before we were, and people pick sides and all that. So it's hurtful. So you're going through a hurt of a relationship that's done. Sometimes your kids are getting ostracized because people don't want them, because they know all the data for the divorced kids, right? They don't want them around their kids. They don't want you hanging around their husbands. I put in there, we don't want your man. Like that, no, we're not out there just trying to get your man, right? So some people said, you know what, just even knowing how to talk to a friend who's going through a divorce, knowing that there are days she may not want to share anything, there are times she may want to, offering help, but knowing that, when she asks for help doesn't mean she gives you full access to her private life. Some people want to help because then they get to ask you a zillion questions, So then
Being
people,
nosy.
yeah. So people who are not divorced said, there are things I learned there about parenting, about supporting other women. People talked about even just growing. The part about growth is not anything that's separate if you're a woman, any woman. It's about learning new things, how to take care of yourself.
Beautiful.
And talk
Beautiful.
about the doctor stuff, making time to take care of yourself and getting your HIV test done and hepatitis test and STD test and mammograms and what happens when you go out to date again, So I think
You
there's a
really
lot
detailed in here.
I do in a very short book, 100 pages,
Right.
but very detailed. And at the end of every chapter, bullet points, kind of takeaway points like, okay, for this chapter, these are the things I can take away from that.
Right, which are great because those are like summary items that
Yes.
you can kind of reflect on
Mhm.
after you read that particular chapter.
Yes.
So I'm going to let you guys know. Dr. Toyin has actually told me on today that she has 2 books that she has signed, 2 free giveaways. So if you call in today, how about we do this? If we call in, oh, this is beautiful. 708-223-8953. Again, 708-223-8953. If you call in today, whether it's with a comment, question, you just want to welcome Dr. Toyin into Mind, Body, and Soul, we will give you one of the 2, and then we give you one of the books that she has as a free gift on today. So thank you for doing that,
Sure.
for supplying us. And this is a good read. Again, it is not just if you are a divorced individual.
And I've had men read it too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And see that's another thing too, because now of course you wrote it. You're a woman. You
Yes,
wrote it from your point
I
of
wrote
view.
it from my
But what about if the divorced individual is a man and he has the children?
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? There are takeaway points in here that techniques that he can use as well.
Correct.
So it's not just for the females. So I don't want you guys to tune out. I see some of my gentlemen jumping in here, and I do appreciate you. Beverly Brown, I see you. Monica Davis, Angie Mims, Grace Gibson is on. Jacinda is watching. Bomo, did I pronounce that right? Saying well done, Toyin. Walter Jones is watching. I think I see Janice John on. So yeah, I don't want you guys to go anywhere. Again, 708-223-8953. We're going to give away one of the 2 free copies that Dr. Toyin has supplied for us on today. These are some great takeaways. We're going to get more into this book. I'm going to take a quick break, allow my guests to catch their breath. And then we'll be back for a little bit more of Mind, Body, and Soul with Annette right here on Intellectual Radio.
Gracious and kind, undeserved mercy, your love for me is unfailing, not to be explained beyond what's my eyes see. That's when you know we've stepped in the favor of God. You gave your life, and now I am free. Your love for me is unfailing, cannot be explained beyond what's my eyes see. That's when you know you stepped in the favor of God. Oh, it's favor, your unmeasurable favor, unexplainable favor. undeniable favor. It's the favor of God. It's favor. Your immeasurable favor. Indescribable favor. Unmistakable favor. It's the favor of God. Oh, yes, it is. Gracious, gracious, mercy, your love for me is cannot be denied. Beyond what's that's when you know the favor of God. For it is unmeasurable. Can't explain it. No
All right, all right. Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you guys for watching on today. Thanks for joining me on this afternoon. We're here on the live feed, Annette, known as Annette. We are also on YouTube. YouTube at the present time. If you go to YouTube, ANET, and you will find us live there. And then also on the station's website, you can listen to us, intellectualradio.com. And you can hear us as well. So I want you guys to let somebody know that we are on live now. And we are talking with this. She is so beautiful to me. I keep looking at her. She's so pretty. And it's not only it's outward and inward. She's a beautiful soul, but she's beautiful to me. She's born here in the U.S., but Nigerian parents. Is that correct?
I grew up in Nigeria.
You grew up, okay,
yes.
Wonderful. So you're born here, but then they took you back there.
About 3.5, and I was there till I was 24.
Oh wow!
And I've been back in the U.S. 25 years.
25 years.
15 next year. Excited.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yes. Love it. I love it. Okay, let's kind of get into this wonderful book on today. Let me first ask you. I think you said it took you how long to write the book?
Less than a year.
Less than a year. You thought it was going to be longer.
I thought it would be longer. It was going to be my empty nester project.
Gotcha.
So, like I said, I'm a nerd. So I had like plans, short-term, long-term, coping, all that when I went, to become an empty nester. Because from when they were 6 and 7, it was just the three of us living together. They spent time with their father, but it was the three of us. One went away to college in 16, and then the second in 18. So, but this got published in November of 2017, and it's amazing how your brain engages in other things you didn't even think you could do. And I created a website. I did a whole bunch of things around marketing, just from learning. So it's been a really good growth experience for me. And the cover photo, which was like flowers growing through a crack in the soil, coming up, like I'm doing well, not just kind of like, oh my God, I'm dying because I'm growing in concrete, but blooming despite that, right? That's not a perfect pot, but that's growing that. And a friend of mine actually had put up a photo on Facebook while I was trying to figure out my cover. I knew I wanted it to be white. I knew I didn't want a photo of me on it on the front page. I kind of knew what I wanted, and I knew the difference between surviving and thriving. So I had the title, I had all that, but that cover graphic, I knew that when I saw it, I would know it. And a friend of mine was taking a walk through some construction site, and she just saw these little flowers growing through concrete, like a little crack in the concrete, a little bit of soil, and these flowers were going through. And so she took a photo, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, look at it!" It was just kind of, and I was like, "That's what I was trying to convey, right? Regardless of what is going on, you can bloom, you can flourish, you can prosper." Regardless, it's not the ideal situation. And so with her help and stuff, and I acknowledge her, I was like, this is the, and then I had somebody create, the visual graphic, but to represent that photo that I saw. Definitely. It does take a village. A lot of my girlfriends in different places who kind of different things that they said or did kind of inspired me to finish, to kind of keep working on that.
Now, when she took that picture, it wasn't so that you could have it for your cover.
No,
She
no,
was
no.
just taking it and
It was
sending it
just
to you.
like, no, she didn't even send it to me. It was just a Facebook post of
Oh,
flowers going through a crack, and I saw it, and just like, and I said, that's what I was trying. Like, how do I show thriving in a difficult situation? And I knew that when that image came, I would know it, I would feel it, and that was it. And her name's Julia Lee. Shout out, Julia. And that was one of those things that it was like, yes, that's what I. And I actually there's a part in the book when I talk about raising children and raising plants. It's kind of very similar things you learn. I'm not a good gardener. I'm good at a lot of things. Gardening's not my thing, but I do have my little patch and potted plants, and I put in there that, with kids and with plants, balance is important. Attention, paying attention in real time is really important, and the rewards of that are great. Really listening. You don't want to, with divorce, sometimes want to spoil the kids because you feel guilty about what's happened to them, so you overcompensate. And spoiled kids don't serve anybody well. They don't serve themselves well as adults, and they don't serve you well in real time. And listening to them is key. So kids have different issues when a divorce is going on. There's some, depending on how much conflict was in the house, are relieved. Like, I can go to bed. There's no fighting. There's no noise. There's some that are anxious about it. There's some that are hoping you guys get back together. There's some that just feel guilt. Like, oh, maybe it's because I was naughty. Is why mom, So they have all these emotions. But just like we as adults have different ways of showing things, they do. Some of them get withdrawn and quiet. And then maybe there's something else. Some of them are really hyper, and they get into trouble at school because maybe that's when mom and dad have to come to the principal's office or whatever. So really listening and paying attention, not to overdo it. Let them know that they can tell you what's going on, but not to like be so over them and imposing that they don't have room to breathe. Right? With flies, you can overflow and overwater and over. So that balance and listening to them. Something feels off, let them talk to you. Let it be okay. Let them feel like they can share the time they spent with the other parent, that they had a good time, without feeling that having a good time with dad is going to make mom really mad. So then that's a lot to put on kids. So that whole part about putting kids first is stuff like that. So balance is important, and listening to them. And listening to them also translates into something that I have a very, very strong passion about, and talk to women about a lot, is really being careful about who you expose your children to.
oh, I love it.
And there's a whole part about it talks about never don't settle, because if you know you deserve the best, you're not going to settle. And just really being aware of who your children are around. If something feels off, it sounds off, it's off. If your children have any angst about it, err on the side of caution. Even if it feels like maybe they just don't want mom today, go with that, because they're only under 18s for one. And those kind of relationships and things that may have happened, if you're exposing them to multiple people who are in and out of your lives, who physically hurt them or harm them, or emotionally just because they get connected, that's setting them up for not knowing how to have decent and good relationships in the future. So listening is very important. Paying attention to the verbal and non-verbal cues. We're parents. You know when something's off with your kids. And sometimes because we're so eager or want to move on because we want the security of another partner, we want to show everybody else that we're doing fine. We want to, okay, our ex moved on. We want to do that. Sometimes women ignore all of these flashing signs. They're usually not subtle, just because of security. They feel lonely. They want the warmth. They want all of that stuff. And we have to be very careful because the kids are in our charge, and we're supposed to be protecting them. And
Mhm.
as a physician, I've seen people as adults who have had issues with abuse. And some of those were people that their parents brought into the home, right? And we've seen those things on the news and things like that. And sometimes it doesn't make it into something that gets on the news, but things that happen, especially when it's somebody introduced by the person who's supposed to care for you the most, your mother or your father, then it's really hard to deal with those hurts, and it sets people up again for some of the things we see about what happens with divorced kids. Those data are out there, but what are the things that we can do to modify that? So I know it's, if you've been part of a couple, it's lonely, it's isolating, especially when the friends say, their needs. We all have needs. We're sexual beings.
That's
So
right.
it's not about being judgy at all. It's not about judging anyone, but knowing that you're making those decisions because that's what you want, not because that's what everybody else seems to be doing. And knowing that you're paying attention to your own health
Hmm.
and also to the health and welfare of your children.
Yeah, that's good. You were saying a whole lot there. My mind went everywhere as you were talking, and I was just trying to relate to some things. Chris says, sounding great. I see you on Demetrius Charleston. Thanks for watching. And Demetrius Carter has come back on with us. There, you were mentioning about. There are so many things you said. One of the things you mentioned about not bringing people in over your children. That's one thing I've always said, and I'll say to this day that I appreciate about my late mother. She's deceased now.
Mm.
Um, and it was crazy because I don't think I really realized this until no, I realized it before, but it
Mhm.
really became really magnified when she passed away.
Mm.
I was appreciative of the fact that my mother never, once they were divorced,
Mhm.
she didn't bring men in and out of our
Mhm.
homes, in and out of her life. And she was being
Right.
pursued.
Oh yeah.
You
She was
know,
selective.
there were gentlemen that were pursuing her
Yeah.
left and
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
but she would not do it. Do you not know when she started dating someone was when I graduated from high school?
Well, that's yes. Well, great. She made a plan
She,
and knew what
yes,
she wanted to do. And
exactly.
everyone's
She
on
didn't
a
want to bring
different
any.
timeline, but
And it makes a difference. Like you said, there's so much that can happen with that. We see, unfortunately, in the news so many times
mhm.
about how these boyfriends are
Mhm.
abusing these children, or God forbid, sometimes the children may end up dead
Mhm.
because of the abuse, of the boyfriend or whoever that's come in, and nobody's going to treat your child like you.
No.
It doesn't matter. They can come and woo you all over the place, and bring you flowers, bring you this, bring you that. And then when you're gone, maybe to work, they can do any and everything to your child if you leave them in their care. And, I don't know how I'm getting off to all this, but
Yeah.
mothers, please be careful
Correct.
and
Yes.
watch out. But
Correct.
again,
It's important to listen to your intuition, to
yes,
like be perceptive, to listen and watch your kids, not just for things they say, but their body language, for things that they do, because there's a lot being thrown at them. There's a lot they're dealing with, and that's just something to be important to know that you don't have to settle
right.
for the next person that comes on and says hello. And sometimes it's hard. And that's why, I talk about therapy and using it when you need it. I'm figuring out if you're the person who needs a group kind of setting to kind of feed off other people and their points, or if you need one-on-one, and where you get your strength from, where your faith comes into play, all the things that you need to heal and make you whole, because those are some of the reasons why we as women, even as men, sometimes ignore things that don't feel right, because but at least this person's is there, it's a warm body in bed, they seem to care about me, but so that is something I put in there in the part about you as you grow,
Yes.
learning, because learning to know yourself sometimes it's difficult, especially if you've been in a relationship, depending on what the relationship was, the marriage was. Sometimes people are isolated from some of their girlfriends, from some of the people that they were with. It's all about. So when the marriage ends, they've lost connections with certain people. But it's a time to take stock and kind of get to know yourself. Think of it as you're resetting for version 2.0. So
Okay.
during that time, you're going to be like, okay, this is what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are the opportunities for growth? What are the threats? With this SWOT analysis, we use it for work, use it for yourself. And during that process of it's to like really be with yourself. And when you do that, and a lot of times we don't. We distract ourselves with a whole bunch of things because that's easier. We can drown out that voice but
And then
when
you don't have to deal with
that you
it.
don't have to deal, because when you ask questions, there are answers, and some answers you don't want to hear. So when you do that, you're actually taking stock, like, okay, what happened in the marriage? What part of it was mine to own? Was it 100% the other person? What part did I play in the demise of this marriage? Is there stuff I could change? Is there stuff I can learn from it? That takes a lot, especially if you're out there telling everybody it was the other person's fault, 100%. You have to like be able to accept that and then own your strength. That's why I used to love the I ams. Like, you have, as women, because that's, I'm talking as a woman, but as human beings, we have incredible talent wired into all of us. And sometimes it's dormant, sometimes we're not thinking about it. That process of getting to know yourself is like, what are my strengths? The things I'm good at. I am a go-to person for this. And sometimes people say, oh, I don't do this. Oh, I sometimes women are like, well, I don't work outside the home, or I stop working outside the home, or oh, I'm just at this. I try to tell people you're not just at anything. Don't, if you once you say I'm just you already minimize yourself. You don't even need
Exactly.
somebody else to do that. So owning your strengths and okay about them, accepting compliments with grace, like, you're an amazing woman, you're this, like, well, thank you. Owning yourself. So those are those strengths. Figuring out what your weaknesses are and seeing which of those you can work on. Is it training? Is it therapy? Is it further education? What is it? What are the weaknesses that you want to do something about? What are the opportunities for growth during this time? People have found businesses, they found things that they're good at, because sometimes with divorce comes, financial issues happen. Sometimes from going from one home to two separate homes, financial standards of life may fall in some people, but usually that's when people figure out this hustle. They're like, oh my gosh, I can trade services, I can do this stuff for this person. I used to do this when I was in college. I totally forgot about
You
that
really
skill
discover
set.
yourself at that point.
You discover yourself mostly because of necessity, but then all of a sudden it becomes something that, oh my gosh, I'm really good at this. And so if you're in that process and you surround yourself with positive people and you're in a thriving mindset, you're accepting compliments. So when somebody says, oh, this is where you're like, well, I made it, or I know this woman who's amazing. I'm not judging her as a divorcee. I'm acknowledging her as an amazing woman. So you find opportunities that you may not have even known about if you weren't divorced. And then think about what those threats are. What are the things that kind of undermine those things? And you have to, that's part of knowing yourself.
It
Part
is.
of knowing yourself is knowing what you want and what you don't want. And side of that is some relationships are no longer valid.
Right.
If people make you feel less than, if people, are negative, or every time you're around certain people, your energy is just, all they do is remind you of the fact that you're a divorcee. Like, it doesn't matter what else is going on, it's always back to that. Somehow it gives them some pleasure. You got to figure out, why am I constantly being around this? If I leave that relationship every time feeling depleted, that's knowing yourself to say, okay, what was it I was getting out of this? Is it time for this to go? You make new friends during the process. And so that getting to know yourself is big, but you have to take the time and be ready, because it's not always
For
going to
the
be pleasant.
answers.
And then figure out that I'm going to have a mindset that's going to actually try and get things better.
Right.
So, yeah.
So self-evaluation is very
Yes.
key. It's very
Yes.
important.
Self
And
love. Yes.
definitely. And then, like you said, be prepared for what you come up
Mhm.
with or what you
Mhm.
find out, and in that respect, because then at that point you need to do something about it.
Correct.
Because you mentioned earlier about, okay, what was my
Correct.
role, in the divorce? Am I saying that it's all that person? But then, yeah, do some self-reflection and look and see, because guess what? I'm sure 9 times out of 10 you probably want to get married again,
Correct.
but if you don't correct whatever you contributed, then it's gonna
Correct.
the same cycle is
Correct.
gonna
And that's why you
continue.
look at some of the stuff where it looks like the divorce rates from second and third marriages seem to be higher than some settings. Actually, the second and third marriages, I think the divorce rates are even high. You would think, okay, we'd like, but it may have to do with just that, the self-reflection going into that next relationship. How quickly we went into that next one. Did we take time to process and heal from that? And
Yes,
healing from that is really important.
so
It is
important.
important. I put that at the end because it would seem like, oh my God, she's fabulous. The kids are great. Everything's awesome. And I put at the end, what are things that I could have done better? Despite of, I think I did my best. I found out whatever. And part of the things I thought was not taking enough time to heal. It took a longer time because I was in the let's do this. Like, okay, the divorce is happening. How do we go take care of the kids? It was like fueled by let's keep going. Not, when relationships end, we need to give ourselves the time to mourn the end of a relationship,
Yeah.
regardless of who pulled the plug. If you're going into a marriage wanting it to last forever and it doesn't, you need to like mourn that and be okay with that. Now, it doesn't have to be on anybody's timeline.
Mm.
And so no one can tell you, oh, this person was, what, every marriage was different. So is every divorce is going to be different. And what kind of trauma a person went through in a marriage is so different, right? If there was a lot of psychological abuse, it's going to take a longer time to even find yourself versus somebody who, whatever reason, was money, was infidel, so every divorce is different, right? So you can't be on anyone's timeline, but take time to heal
You
and
have
repair
to.
yourself, and ask for help is okay. That took me a while, like,
Mm,
to know that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. The fact that you can do it all, at some point you get depleted, and that doesn't make you, the best person you can be. That help, asking for help or accepting help when it's offered, is a sign of actual strength. It's a
yeah.
sign that I know my strength, I know my weaknesses, and thank you for offering help. That took me a while, so in terms of what I would have done, taking more time to just, mourn the end of one relationship, um, asking for help and accepting it when it's offered, and not feeling guilty for a long time about, oh my gosh, the kids, the kids, just knowing that, you know stuff happens. As long as you're putting your best foot forward, it's okay.
Definitely.
And things change for them, and but you just know that, you did your best. We went from a bigger neighborhood where they had lots of kids on the block to a townhome where there were mostly older couples. So I felt like, this kind of socialization I had growing up with kids on the block, everyone's playing, you can run to any home. They didn't have that growing up. They had friends from school, and they would have to like schedule playtime to go meet with someone and all of that. So they didn't have that. We had to move. We moved and we sold homes and did all that. But then I say, you know what? It's made them value their friendships even more. So even with those things, I'm like, okay, but the positive of that is they had to be intentional about play dates and time with friends, and they're such loyal friends to their friends. They don't have a zillion friends, but they're loyal friends. They value their friendships. They appreciate their friends, and that's something that you want.
That's important.
And women, I put it in there too. It's like, when you have that sisterhood or that support system, doesn't always have to be girls. The people that help you through difficult times, when you start dating again, or when you remarry, or when whatever it is that you're trying to get to, don't ditch them. We're not in middle school anymore. So people said that. It's like all of a sudden, you were calling me all the time, and I was the one who was talking you off the ledge, and all of a sudden you're dating and you wouldn't even pick up my calls. I mean, that happens in middle school, maybe a little bit of high school. But as
Right.
grown people, support system know that we value them, we value their input, and even though we may not spend as much time anymore because we're in a new relationship, that we don't just drop them until we
Right.
need them again.
And you can't. You have to
Yeah.
stick with them,
Hmm.
because that's very important. Now I do want to. I know we have a spoken word that Elder McGee has penned for us, but I want to read a couple of comments before we do that.
Okay.
Deirdre says here, it is wrong to let your kids get attached to people that made. Oh, she made a correction, that won't remain in your life,
Yeah.
even if they are good people. And yeah, I agree that's why you say you have to have that discernment. You
Attachment.
have
Yeah.
to, understand and know who you're dealing with, and which is probably, key to, just not have so many people come in
Come
and
into
out of
your life.
your life. They could, could be a wolf in sheep's clothing or whatever, show you one thing about them, but then underneath there's something else
And
that's
I think
going
her
on there.
point that even if they are good people, the kids could get emotionally attached to that person. So you guys part ways. Good people, you just, the relationship's run its course, you're done. But then the kids, this is not just, you may decide that this person, they're good, but, just not. But then you just broke their hearts because, they're
Right.
attached. So even good people, which there are a lot more good people than these rare people we talk about who abuse kids,
Hmm.
it's still hard for the kids if they get really attached. So it's a balancing act, and just kind of listening and watching the kids, because they're
Right.
only kids for so long. 18 years seems like long,
Yeah.
but it really is not, because once they're out of the house, those relationships and how they felt when they were home is going to define a lot of how much time they want to come back when they're out of the house. So
Right.
it's
Definitely.
really important to put them
Yes.
first.
Deirdre
Hashtag put the
said
kids first.
that's exactly what she meant.
Hashtag, yeah.
That's right. Sherry Baker, we appreciate you for watching. Hey, if you want a free copy of this book, go ahead and put in the comment section, say, I want it. We can get it out to you. This is an autographed copy that the author is applying for my listeners on today. So this is definitely something key. I have learned some things out of this by reading it myself. There are some very key points that you can take away, whether you're dealing with divorce, whether you're dealing with, any kind of broken relationship in your life, something that has happened that seems like it's kind of tragic to you. She breaks it down to let you know that you can get better. You don't have to get bitter after whatever you do. I don't care whatever the reason was for the breakup or the demise of that relationship. You don't have to get bitter. You can get better. And we have a free copy for you. We have two. So if you hurry up, you can, I don't know, if you want to inbox me, that's fine. You can inbox me, or you can put it in the comment section, or you can call in today, 708-223-8953. There is one individual that I do want to give it to.
Okay.
That I know is she may not put on here that she wants it,
Okay.
but I know that she would definitely benefit from it. So let me know today. Let me know. Hey, Tradana, I see you. Thanks for watching. What I'm going to do is actually have my producer to play the spoken word from Elder Kevin McGee. He has a show here on Saturdays entitled Connections, 12 o'clock noon. Make sure you guys follow Elder McGee, because he has some great guests that comes in, and he's making the connection. So take a listen. This is a topic, spoken word, that is relative to today's topic. We'll be right back.
Finally has come. Finality has been achieved. Took me years to overcome, yet I can say I am an overcomer. No more grief, just wonderful memories of times past. No pain in writing, joy of the ink has been restored. What I thought was going to destroy me made me stronger, and my light never again shall be dimmed, because I have found a new purpose. Things can be restored after divorce. Matter of fact, my faith has reignited my passion, set me on a journey into destiny. The pain of loss is no more. I am at peace with a peace that passeth all understanding. It's not over, but my life is just beginning.
Right? It's not over. It is not over. My life is just beginning. Yes, yes. And I believe I read that too. Little Kevin McGee, thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful spoken word. It definitely wraps up today's topic. And, he has not read your book.
Oh.
He has not read your book.
Wow.
I will tell him what the topic is, and the Lord gives him what to write.
Wow.
So you see how, and what she did just a few seconds ago, she pulled up page 8 when you guys get your book, and she pulled up that one scripture that he talked about in his spoken piece there. Oh goodness, may the peace of God, and that's actually one I highlighted in here too. May the peace of God, which passes all human understanding, keep your heart and mind in the knowledge and love of God. She says in here, the best prayer you can ever pray for yourself. That's the best prayer. And, I tell you, it's so important to understand and know that, because, we also have to know that even when we're going through things, whether it's divorce, the demise of a relationship, or something that's tragic, God is there, and he's there to help us and to take us through. And his peace, PEACE, is what's going to bring us through. And that spoken word was very key. I have a question here on the live feed, but I also want to ask you your thoughts about that spoken word, Dr. Toyin.
Oh my gosh, it was right on key. And for you to say he hadn't read it, I mean, just inspirational. And just like my life is just beginning,
Yes.
like a reset or restart, and the peace. Because, at the end of every day, if you can, I talk about wisdom, strength, and peace. And those are all three things, and some days, all you need is, you want all of those things: wisdom through difficult situations, the strength to do what you need to do, and the peace to lay down your head at the end of the day and thankful the next morning that I'm still here to do this. And so some days it seems like all you want is 100% peace. Some days it's the strength because you're just physically, mentally, emotionally tired. Some days it's just wisdom to navigate something else that happened, a co-parenting issue, something that happened with the kids at school because of the issue with the divorce, the wisdom and the ability to have people in your lives that can actually help with that, so there's wisdom from above, but the tangible people, having people that you can go to for advice and
Love that.
advice that is in your best interest and knowing how to discern like what you're getting because people, everyone's an expert usually on stuff. Oh,
Of
I know
course.
this. And,
Oh, I did
oh,
like this.
I did it this way. But there are nuances of every marriage and divorce that nobody knows. So what works for your friend and your last three friends may not work for you.
There
So
you go.
that wisdom to be able to take advice that is coming from a good place that will help you and to be able to reject things that don't serve you well, regardless of what whoever is giving the advice. You
Now
know
that's wisdom. What you just said.
that
That's
it
wisdom.
is to be able to reject things or to accept it with modification like okay, this is great, I may have to tweak it a little bit because sometimes when people see a positive co-parenting experience they term that as your doormat or you're trying to get back with a guy or you're just not assertive enough, but you have to know why you're doing what you need to do. So if you're co-parenting positively is for your kids and for you to have peace and for you to heal, then it doesn't matter who else is telling you, oh my God, you should have done this and I would block him, I would do this, and it doesn't help anyone. And really those people
Hmm.
that egg after a while they get tired of you. It's fun for some people to hear you like nag and bash the ex all the time. It's great. It's fun for them. They say the right things to push your buttons. But how does that help anything? After a while, they see you coming like, oh, what's she going to talk about today?
Right.
You're not moving on.
And what works for Dr. Toy and her family, that's what works. It doesn't,
Correct.
like you said,
Correct.
everybody is different.
Correct.
And again, you bring up something else.
Correct.
Well, another thing I always appreciated about my mother and my father is the very fact. Now we lived with her after the
Okay.
divorce.
Hmm.
Not once did she tear him down.
Same thing.
Not
live with me,
once did
yeah.
she talk negative about him.
It's hard, but
Right.
it's
Whatever went
it's
on between the two of them, she didn't bring it, like you
it's so
said.
sad. It's
And
not fair to them.
it's not.
It's not fair. So that part of that is be civil and it includes what you say because sometimes it backfires. Parents do this sometimes because it's their own hurt. So the parent who gets to have the kid sometimes use the kid as pawns, right? They don't let them see the other parent. They talk bad about them, and sometimes it backfires. They then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, if we can't say nice things about dad or about the other parent, it really backfires. Then they really get very protective of that other parent. It's just it doesn't work well at
The
all.
whole big old
It's
mess.
a whole big old mess. It's too much to dump on them. And then you got to say at some point that person was that 100% horrible. And there's some people who are just, really need to be out of your life. There's abuse. They shouldn't even be around the kids. There are times when, you know, the court, there was abuse, but you got to say if they were 100% bad and you were with them, that yeah, and you still want them because you heard about the divorce and what's up
Right.
with you? I mean, so you have to be honest about that, and really it's too much to put on the kids when you do that and you're constantly bashing the other person. You're not moving on. It's a lot on the kids. It can backfire, and it doesn't help them to form positive relationships about stuff. If all they hear about the other person is what this person is not, how do they think that there are people out there who are good, decent people?
That's good.
So it's really about helping them to make their own decisions about people, not because for 20 years all they heard was how horrible
Excellent.
men were or women or
Excellent.
whoever.
And with that in mind, because you're saying some good stuff there, Chris asked, how do you navigate new relationships with co-parenting? So I want to see if you can answer that in just like a couple of minutes, because I know we're going to be
But we're
wrapping
done.
up.
Okay. So new relationships in terms of yours. Thank you, Chris. In terms of that, new relationships in terms of when that co-parent then partners or if you are in a partnership. So it's really important to, depending on what kind of relationship you guys have and if you're able to communicate civilly in person, on the phone, or by email or technology, when that person is, if it's a serious person on the other part that your children are going to be exposed to let them know that I am with this person, it's a serious relationship, and the children are going to be part of that. And sometimes it's harder when somebody seems to have found that next person and one person hasn't. And so then it's about not just this other person that they've never met is like on their hit list, it's like
Automatically.
automatically. And so it's really important to communicate. And if sometimes co-parents will talk and actually have the parent who lives with the kids talk to the kids about it, that the next time you go over to this person, they're with this person and all that. And also, if you can, it's not always possible, be respectful of that other person. If your children are spending time with that other person as a part of your co-parents' life, and they're not harming them, they're not trying to become their mom or dad, they're not undermining whatever you're trying to do, work with them as best you can through the spouse, through whatever. So some co-parents, everybody goes on vacation together, we're all
One
they're
big happy
different,
family.
they're all different ways of doing that, but the main thing is open communication and being open to the fact that as long as that other person is a good parent to your kids and you're aware of who that other person is, having a good communication about, not involve, if you're doing your part to not expose the kids to too many people, that your co-parent respects that also. And you can't really have mutual agreements if you guys don't talk or can't communicate at all. If you cannot communicate at all, it doesn't help the kids because they're going to actually start playing you against each
Yeah,
other. Like, well, dad said I could
definitely.
do that. We don't have to do
And they do
homework
it
at
so
dad's house.
skillfully.
Exactly. That's what kids do. So you
They
guys have to
are.
have a united front about what you want for the children, including when you start dating other people.
Excellent. Chris, I hope that answered your question. Thank you for that question. Brandy, I see you watching. Elder Kevin McGee, we played your spoken word, so I'm not sure if you heard it or not. Deirdre says here, I just had that same combo this morning with someone. Never talk bad about the ex, the children's other parent. It hurts the children, and I totally
Yes.
agree. Mama Ida, thank you for watching on today. Hey, if you tell me real quick that you want this last free copy, signed copy of this book, I will give it to you. We are ending the show, but I will give it to you. We have she had two today, and we have one, designated to someone else. But if you tell me here, go ahead and type in I want the free copy of the book or inbox me. You can do that and you can have this copy on today. It is so key. Chris says, thank you. That was great advice. A comment from Brandy says, not bashing the ex is huge. It takes a lot of healing and maturity to realize realize that and walk in that truth. I totally agree. Because you never know who all that you are affecting. Brandy says she wants the copy. Okay, that's the second copy that's gone. Thank you so much. We will definitely get this out to you. The first person, Angie, will get the book out to you, and then also Brandy. So this is beautiful. My guest on today has supplied 2 free copies of this wonderful book. I'm telling you, will not be disappointed. There are techniques in here. Oh, somebody else saying there. Now you guys are running in with saying you want the copies, Deirdre and Sherry. Oh my goodness. Okay, we'll yeah, and this is what I want you to do right now. She's going to tell you where you can get the book. Also, we had 2 free copies for today, but she's going to let you know where you can get the book before we end today's show.
Okay. So I'd like to say thank you so much for having me on. It's been great. It was just like having a convo.
Yeah, and that's
we
something.
just met.
I was just thinking that. I'm
We're
like,
just
we
like,
can just sit down at dinner
wine,
and
but
just
water.
we
just
can
chit chat.
just chit chatting about this book. Great.
So it's available on Amazon. So you can get it on Amazon.com. It's available in print copy, available in Kindle, and an audio book. So Audible, Kindle, and print version. It's also available at Barnes and Noble and some other retailers. I also have a website, thedecadeafter.com. And that website was as a part of I read that, when you have a book, you need to have a website. But it's actually been really fun because I've been doing blogs on there. I have blogs on empty nesting, financial, parenting tips. I like to do acronyms, on parenting. What does that mean? Praying for your kids, advocating for them, respecting them. So there are lots of blogs on there. You can also order a copy that way. But the easiest I think people find is to do it on Amazon. You can get print, audio, and Kindle versions. And then I would love people to follow me on Facebook. This is Decade After on Facebook. Also on Instagram at The Decade After. And the website is thedecadeafter.com. I do have on there blogs and parenting blogs and empty nesting, just things that I find interesting. So
beautiful. All right. Thank you for that. I have placed in the comment section the link for Amazon. And then if you
Yes,
want to
ma'am.
go on Barnes and Noble as well.
Follow me
So,
on Instagram, The Decade After,
okay.
Facebook, The
She's
Decade
all
After.
over the
I'm all
decade after.
at The Decade After. Yes.
You
Facebook, Instagram.
you know what, Sherry? Since I'm gonna make sure you get a copy, a free copy. Okay,
Aw,
Sherry. I'll Mind, Body, and Soul make sure you get a free copy.
awesome.
But I thank you guys for joining us on today, for listening, for sharing. In this wonderful, wonderful conversation with Dr. Toy. And I may say Dr. Toy, I may just say Dr.
That's
Falusi,
okay.
and it's still her name.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful. Demetrius is very thought provoking dialogue. Thanks for sharing. And Chris says she empowers women to thrive. Yes, she
Yes.
does. And that is so, so important. And like you said, if we would just, as women, just join
Support each
together,
other. Yes. We all
support
want
each
the
other.
same things.
We do.
We do.
We do. Let's not talk
Regardless
about
of
each
anything, we
other.
all want
Or
the
why
same
she has
things.
those shoes on with that dress, or why she did this, or what have you. Let's
Let's
support
move.
one another. And I think that's so key. It's so important. And I am so, again, so grateful for you being with us on this afternoon and sharing this wonderful, wonderful project that you have. Great things. And she's been all over. She's been on WVON,
Yes.
and were you on Fox too?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
she's all over. Okay, and she came to Mind, Body, and Soul, you guys. So I'm excited that you've done that on today, and for telling us about this what God has given you and how you can help someone else.
And I know I'm done, but I have 1 second to say I'm an infectious disease doctor.
Uh-huh.
June 27th is National HIV Testing Day. So get out there and get a test. Everyone in the US over the age of 15, sexually active, need to get a one-time HIV test. Lots of places to get free HIV testing. National HIV Testing Day. I work at Cook County Health. We have tons of places to do it, but it's really important to know your status so you can get in care if you need to, or protect yourself with PrEP if you need to. If you're a baby boomer, get a hepatitis C test. So those are the two conditions that I take care of: HIV and hepatitis C. Simple blood tests to diagnose it, easy ways to get into care and treatment. And as women, we need to put ourselves first sometimes.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
The doctor came out at the end of the show.
Yeah, the doctor.
The doctor came out at the end of the show, and I'm going to ask her when she gets a chance, go into that live feed and put the information of where they can get the testing. Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much. And here are the two books, and we will definitely, bookmarks too. So we'll definitely get these out to the winners, and then we will make sure that you guys have all the information you need to be able to purchase this book. Go look up Dr. Toy in the decade after. She's all over. Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Don't go anywhere, guys. We are going to have another live show. Do not go anywhere. Mr. Richard Gallion is up next. So don't go anywhere. Okay. Take care. You've listened to Mind, Body, and Soul with Annette right here on Intellectual Radio.
Get caught in a net with